Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy with Chef Justice Putnam. Netrootsradio.com.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleur sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est long, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte.
Senator Romney, it's good to see you. Thanks so much for joining us. I want to get to that relief bill in just 1 second, but first I have to ask you, President Trump held a meeting on Friday in which he reportedly discussed with his disgraced former National Security Advisor, Michael Flynn, this deranged idea to declare martial law, to force new elections in states that Biden won. They also have discussed appointing conspiracy theorist Sidney Powell as a special counsel to investigate her baseless claims of election fraud, and also issuing an executive order to seize voting machines. This is, needless to say, quite alarming and scary to a lot of people. What's your response? What will Senate Republicans do to make sure none of this madness happens?
Well, it's not going to happen. That's going nowhere. And I understand the president is casting about, trying to find some way to have a different result than the one that was delivered by the American people. But it's really sad in a lot of respects and embarrassing, because the president could right now be writing the last chapter of this administration with a victory lap with regards to the vaccine. After all, he pushed aggressively to get the vaccine developed and distributed. That's happening on a quick time frame. He could be going out and championing this extraordinary success, and instead, he's leaving Washington with a whole series of conspiracy theories and things that are so nutty and loopy that people are shaking their head wondering what in the world has gotten into this man. And I think that's unfortunate, because he has more accomplishments than this last chapter suggests he's going to be known for.
I know you're eager to talk about the stimulus negotiations. It seems like there was a major breakthrough last night. Do you believe there is going to be a deal today?
Well, I believe there's going to be a deal. There are always sticking points, but the big one was resolved last night very late. And over the past, if you know, several weeks, there's been a lot of work done. Of course, it should have happened a long time ago. But, we got a group together about 4 weeks ago that sat down and said, hey, we've got to find a way to get some progress here for Republicans, for Democrats. We met time and time again. We came up with a $900 billion roughly proposal. That was picked up by leadership on both sides, and they're working on some additional points. But I think it's going to get done. It'll get done before Christmas.
One of the major sticking points has been the size of the direct payments to Americans. President Trump weighed in last night, tweeting that Congress should send more money. Where does that stand? Is it still, do you think, going to be at about $600 per individual?
Yeah, it's going to be $600, and it would be nice to be even more than that. But I think there's a recognition on the part of those of us that worked on this deal that our highest priority is to get people who are worried about keeping their job. And so getting, if you will, help to small business is critical. Helping people that are unemployed have extension of unemployment benefits, also housing support. And then, of course, the cost of vaccine distribution needs to be covered. We want to keep airlines flying, buses going, transit systems going. All these things are very, very high priority. So the check is going to be roughly $600 a person, and that will help, although I know people would like it to be a larger number.
Let's go to the massive ongoing cyber attack against the United States, which has affected countless government agencies and private companies. Senate Intelligence Committee Chairman, your colleague Senator Marco Rubio, said it was essentially an act of war. Colorado Congressman Jason Crow called it the cyber equivalent of Pearl Harbor. Is that how you see it?
Well, it's extraordinarily severe, and actually Tom Bossert, who was the president's national security advisor, Homeland Security advisor, said that you couldn't overstate how serious this attack was. And it's an invasion of kinds on our cyberspace. And just to put it in context, if you think back 20 years ago, when we were attacking Baghdad, you saw these cruise missiles being launched from ships going across the landscape and then taking out the communications towers, the utility towers, and so forth, because you can cripple a country by doing so. Well, what Russia has done is put in place a capacity to potentially cripple us in terms of our electricity, our water, our communications. I mean, this is the same sort of thing one can do in a wartime setting. And so it's extraordinarily dangerous, and it's an outrageous affront on our sovereignty, and one that's going to have to be met with a very strong response, not just rhetorical, important as that is, but also with a cyber response of like magnitude or greater.
White House officials were prepared to publicly blame Russia for this hack on Friday, as you just did, but they were told to stand down. And then yesterday, President Trump tweeted this: the cyber hack is far greater in the fake news media than in actuality. I've been fully briefed and everything is well under control. Russia, Russia, Russia is the priority chant whenever anything happens, because lamestream is, for mostly financial reasons, petrified of discussing the possibility that it may be China. It may. And the president goes on to tie all of this to his baseless allegations of election fraud, which I won't repeat here. This is part of a long pattern throughout the Trump presidency of President Trump refusing to hold Russia accountable, even though you and Tom Bossert and the Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, have all said this was Russia. What's your response to the president's tweet?
Well, the president has a blind spot when it comes to Russia, and so you can expect that that's the response that he would have. But when it comes to matters of intrusion into our cyberspace, I frankly look to the experts, because I'm not an expert on that dimension. And the experts, the thousands upon thousands who work at the Department of Defense and the intelligence unit, the CIA, the National Security Administration, and others who've looked at this said, well, there's no question it's come from Russia. They've done this sort of thing before. They've done it again. And what it underscores is Russia acts with impunity with regards to these cyber attacks because they don't think we have the capacity to respond in like measure. They also recognize that our defense is inadequate. And they've come to recognize that what will come from the White House will not be the kind of rhetoric which would be jarring. So this is a big wake-up call for us. And I think we're going to have to really rethink our military and national security readiness when it comes to cyberspace, because this is the warfare of the future. And I hope that we get ourselves up to the capacity you would expect the strongest, greatest nation on earth to have.
Former White House cybersecurity czar Richard Clarke told me a few days ago something similar to what you just said, that there aren't many options left for sanctions. The only way for Russia to take us seriously is to hurt them back in the cyber sphere. I have to ask, when you ran for president in 2012, President Obama and his team mocked you for saying that Russia was the number one geopolitical foe of the United States. You were proven correct about that. A lot of those same people who mocked you in 2012 are about to take over the foreign policy of the United States. Do you think they now agree that Russia is the number one geopolitical foe of the United States, or at least one of the top two with China?
I do, actually. You know, I had the chance to be with Madeleine Albright, former Secretary of State under the Obama administration, and she said, you were right. And we didn't recognize it at the time, but she said you were right, and it was nice to hear. But I would have rather seen the actions taken then that would have prevented the kind of things from occurring that we've seen over the last several years. But I think that President-elect Biden is a clear-eyed, intelligent individual, and he's going to assess Russia and their capabilities in an appropriate way. But I also think that he will look at China and recognize that long-term, China is the more significant threat to America. Russia is, if you will, a gas station parading as a country, as John McCain used to say. And they've got extraordinary difficulties, and they're lashing out in a moment of decline. China, of course, is emerging stronger and stronger and presents an extraordinary threat to freedom around the world and to our prosperity here. And so that's going to be the more significant challenge that will be faced by a new president. But I have confidence that the people around the president-elect, and the president-elect himself will recognize the severity of what we face on the global front.
Senator, you're consistently one of the only Republicans in Washington willing to criticize President Trump and break with your party on issues of principle. There are two or three guys in the House. You're pretty alone in the Senate. Republican leaders have either remained silent or actively supported the president's deranged claims about the election. Do you still recognize the Republican Party?
Well, the party has taken a different course than obviously the one that I knew as a younger person. The party that I knew was one that was very concerned about Russia and Putin and Kim Jong-un and North Korea. We pushed back aggressively against them. We were a party concerned about balancing the budget. We believed in trade with other nations. We were happy to play a leadership role on the world stage because we felt that made us safer and more prosperous. And we believed that character was essential in the leaders that we chose. We've strayed from that. I don't see us returning to that for a long time. As I look at the 2024 contenders, most of them are trying to become as much like Donald Trump as they can be. Although I must admit that his style and shtick, if you will, is difficult to duplicate. He's an extraordinarily talented person from that standpoint. I represent a very small slice of the Republican Party today. But, everybody has to stand up for what they believe, and I believe my colleagues are doing what they think is right.
You do ever think about leaving the Republican Party, as Congressman Paul Mitchell did, to protest the attacks on democracy that the Republican Party and President Trump are doing right now?
I think I'm more effective in the Republican Party, continuing to battle for the things I believe in, and I think ultimately the Republican Party will return to the roots that have been formed over the century. So we'll get back at some point, and hopefully people will recognize we need to take a different course than the one we're on right now.
It is Monday, the 21st of December of 2020, and you are in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I am your chef de cuisine, Justice Putnam. Gunner the English Bulldog is our snoozing sous chef, and our daily special is River City Hash Mondays. It's been one of those weekends, as we always say on Mondays. Won't it be lovely after the 20th of January when we can look at Mondays as one of those, well, it's Monday. Who wants to look forward to Mondays? Well, it's different now when we don't want to look forward to Mondays because we know the deluge of all that went on during the weekend. In other words, don't you pine for those days of yore when the weekend was a time of rest, reflection, not really paying attention to the outside world, except maybe some football in the holiday season? Yeah, well, times have been a-changing, and they're going to be changing big time come January 20th. Though I will have to tell you, warn you, there will be some residual. Yes. Like ripples in a stone thrown into the lake. They will resonate off of the banks and come back and then resonate again and keep coming because that's what's going to happen. In other words, rust never sleeps. The corrosive element that allowed the last 4 years to occur still exists. The ship of state needs major infrastructure. And part of that infrastructure is never stopping your work and rubbing out the rust. Rust never sleeps. And you got to be aware of that because once you stop, it's really hard to get rid of it. And then the repairs to fill in the gaps that have been corroded away. We have our work cut out for us. And part of our work is winning back the hearts and minds of our own populace, Americans. We have to somehow get 70 million people to love America again. And what that means is loving Americans. That's why Joe, I got to hand it to him. He says we have to deal with this other side. And it's true, we have to. We may end up not being able to. We may throw up our hands and say, my God, I give up. Let them burn down their house if that's what they want to do. Just make sure the fire hoses are directed at ours. Except sometimes it's not enough. But anyway, we love America and we love Americans. And I know we look at Americans like us. Kind of like the bar scene in Star Wars. There's a lot of us and we're different and we're all the same. 70 million, I know. Let's not say that all 70 million are, insurrectionists. Just because they voted for civil war. I don't know. What do you call them? We have to love them as well. I understand that. It is part of the Jesus story, isn't it? Actually, most religions incorporate the love of all humanity. And I guess maybe extend what humanity is to, the lesser beings like the animals. We like to call them lesser. I don't know. I think they know more than us. By not knowing, I don't know. That's a discussion for another philosophical debate some other time. But right now, we have to figure out how to appeal to the hearts and minds of 70 million people who have somehow turned away from America. Oh, I know, they fly the flag like they're real patriots. That's another thing. I will never cede the American flag to them, even though I have issues with the American flag and, the idea of symbols, because the map is not the territory, I know. That flag is not the nation. It's a representation of it. So we don't need to, rally around it and hopefully, die right there in front of the flag. I don't know. The idea, I think, is what we're talking about, of what the flag represents. I know we all need a talisman and, something and, that we can follow and visualize and remind us of what that thought is. But I will not cede that to them. Because I won't. They have no idea. I mean, I gotta tell you, most of them don't even know how to fold the flag properly. Jeez. And they wear it on their pants. They're sitting on the American flag. They get towels and they sit on it. It's maddening. But I suppose, the Christian attitude would be, they know not what they do. In a rule of law, in a country of laws, in a society of laws, ignorance is really no excuse. How many times have we heard that before? Sounds rather draconian, but it sort of is meant to push you to not be ignorant about what it is to live in your country. Oh, they're so up on making it harder for those brown people coming in here to be citizens. They don't know what it's like to be Americans. And of course, they can't even spell. They can't even tell you what is the letter from Jefferson to the Danbury Baptist. They have no idea. If I was going to fill up a gumball jar to keep, let's just say it, okay, white people from voting in the South, the gumball jar would be questions that are just what every American should know about the Constitution and the founding of this country. Can't answer it, can't vote. And you know who is able to answer it? Those people who really care, whose heart, minds, and even soul wants to know and be an American so much that they will know as much as they can about America. Those who make those sacrifices, small sacrifices that turn out to be, maybe big sacrifices, so that, like in their family, they have what did we call it back in the day? A more perfect union. We're striving to make it a more perfect union. There's never any perfection in what we do. And I will argue that the other side, and we have to, I guess, stop looking at them as the other side. But right now, it's pretty tough when they're trying to marshal the forces for martial law. That we have to somehow embrace them. And we do it daily on the local level. I mean, we all know some Republicans. I mean, obviously, they're in our families, aren't they? Anyway, even in our own neighborhoods, and by and large, we're civil with our neighbors, in spite of the fact that we know they flew those Trump flags. But I never stopped flying the American flag. I will not cede that to them. They can deface the flag. They can put their little red line on it. They can put their little blue line on it. They can do whatever they can, make it black and white and with a red stripe and the blue stripe, and hell, I don't care. Because you can burn the flag to a certain degree, but do not tell me that that is, shall we say, just, the traditional reverence that we would have for the Constitution of the United States as embodied. Emboldened, embodied in the flag. You think so little of it that you would deface the flag? And they go, I don't know. It got so bad around here, some people were flying their MAGA flag above the United States flag. Another clear violation of the flag code, but no one goes to jail for it. But those who know saw what happened, and a lot of them now know that we know. Shunning, shaming, maybe. Now, there's going to be still the more vocal elements that want to let you know that they will not give up. So, what do? Right now, I think that we still need to marshal our forces and get out the vote where it is needed. Right now in Georgia, for instance. Every election has consequences, all the midterms. We have to show up in the midterms. We're giving up some already in the House so that they can serve in Joe's cabinet. Deb Haaland, as an example. But we need her in Interior. Actually, I'm kind of hoping that she just says, hey, all of Dakota is a sacred ground, and all those people that haven't been there for 35 generations, they're going to be on a trail of tears to Wyoming. We'll send them to Wyoming. Let them take care of them there. Okay. Because the Cheneys live in Wyoming. I always like to diss and dump on Wyoming because of it. But hell, send them there. Let them learn how to build some sod houses and learn what it was like to be a real little house on the prairie. Wyoming's not quite the prairie, but you know what I mean. Well, enough of this rant. It's Monday. Oh, my God. Oh, stimulus bill, $600. It's good that they passed the stimulus bill, because think of how much medicine you won't be able to buy with $600. Will it stimulate the economy? That's not what it's meant to do. No. They think it's bread and circuses. Well, it's not much bread and there's no circus about it. I mean, in the traditional sense, like it's not entertaining. But it is a circus, a 3-ring circus run by clowns. And that's not because I am fearful of clowns. I don't fear clowns. Sometimes they piss me off. But, clowns are people too. Really? I mean, why else would they be clowns? Oh, enough of that. What's on the rest of the menu? Well, of course, Mitt Romney, he knows that this latest aggression by Vlad, again exposing Trump's blind spot on Russia. According to Mitt, it should be a big wake-up call for us all. Well, some of us woke up quite a while ago, Anyway, at least Mitt's on board for now. You know how Mitt is. On the rest of the menu, the Trump administration is taking one more shot at women's health care while it can. Yeah, they think they're going to be able to have a coup. I don't think so. Georgia's 2 neo-Antebellum senators have a nifty new separate but equal idea for counting votes. Of course they do. And Major League Baseball finally recognizes the Negro Leagues' proper place in history, and it's about time. After the break, we move to the chef's table, where at least 8 Katyusha rockets exploded in Baghdad's heavily fortified green zone in an attack targeting the U.S. Embassy. We're not talking about some measly consulate in Benghazi now. The actual embassy. Not one word. Haven't heard anything about that, have you? And Putin told the spy agency responsible for the massive cyber attacks against the United States to keep up the good work. All that and more on West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit. That's been taken up with the Monday morning rant. I'll just jump in and abbreviate a bit here and just thank Kelly. Thank you, Kelly, for manning the chat room. And please, people, do go to our homepage at netrootsradio.com. The chat room link is down there at near the bottom at the rightish part of our homepage. And it's now getting towards Christmas, and we'll take a little break, at least for today, about our, daily appeal for funds to keep Netroots Radio going. Thank you for your generosity, and we'll get more back into how you can help Netroots Radio later on. And if you would like to follow Netroots Radio on Twitter, do so at Netroots Radio. Tom takes care of that. And thank you, Tom. Wow. Follow me on Twitter at Justice Putnam, and you know why. Post the show notes and links diary and read the actual stories from those links. Then you'll know how much I've embellished and turned it into, I don't know, a vehicle for whatever comedy I think I can wrest out of it. Follow the show on Twitter at Cookbook West and pick up podcasts by way of Spreaker, Stitcher, TuneIn, iHeart, YouTube, iTunes. And you know where else, wherever you can get them. Deezer. Get your podcasts from Deezer. Lisa Needham brings us this first offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, River City Hash Mondays. The anti-choice policies pushed by Trump and Pence will likely soon be a thing of the past. Oh, God, I hope so. But the outgoing administration is going to do as much damage to reproductive freedom as it can before January 20th. The latest attack comes in the form of one last change to Title X, which is supposed to provide money for family planning services for low-income people. Well, low-income people can't have anything. They're put on earth by the divine for us to punish. Oh, really? Is that really what you think? Or is that what you hope for? Title X funds used to go to organizations that actually provide comprehensive family planning services, such as Planned Parenthood. But they've been demonized, I would say like Acorn, but I think Planned Parenthood's been demonized even more than Acorn. And Planned Parenthood, which had been treating about 40% of the 40 million patients receiving care under Title X. Under the Trump administration, that money has been diverted to organizations that push natural family planning and abstinence, like Trump has ever practiced that, rather than contraception or abortion. Really? Wow, that sounds like a conservative evangelical view of religious freedom above all other rights to me. Now the administration is finalizing a rule change that will narrow the scope of Title X funds even further. The rule change will allow faith-based providers to receive Title X dollars even if they refuse to inform patients about services they don't provide because of their religious beliefs. Like, you're not going to be able to dance during physical therapy because our religion doesn't allow it. or worse. They can also receive Title X even if they refuse to refer people to other providers that offer contraceptive services because, hey, if you're going to discriminate because of religious freedom and you want to and believe it is your God-given right down to your very heart and soul, because that's what your mind is being told, you will. It isn't that religious groups were previously prohibited from getting Title X funds. They just had to follow the rules like everyone else. But, these evangelicals don't want to follow the rules. And when I say evangelicals, I mean white evangelicals. They just will not follow the rules because the rules don't apply to them at all. Under President Barack Obama, when we had a president, religious health care and social service groups were required to refer patients to a different provider that could provide contraception and abortion services if the patient wished. They've never been forced to provide something to which they are morally opposed. But in their mindset, to send these people to the devil would be to condemn their eternal soul to hell, and we'd much rather condemn their eternal soul to hell here. But in an echo of conservative attacks on the Affordable Care Act's birth control mandate, the administration believes that requiring religious health care or social service providers even to mention that another organization could provide contraception is a violation of religious freedom. And, of course, we all know what that is. Using religion to give you the freedom to discriminate because it just feels so right. Donna Provencher of the American Independent brings us this next offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Georgia Republican Senators David Perdue and Kelly Loeffler filed a lawsuit late last week asking that the ballots of newly registered voters be reviewed and counted separately from those of other votes. My, that sounds like a neo-Antebellum gambit. Perdue tweeted in a statement about the lawsuit, "There's too much at stake in these elections for there to be any doubt in the integrity and transparency of their outcomes. Georgia will not tolerate double voting and failures to address out-of-state voters attempting to influence the results of these elections. Immediate action is required to ensure this doesn't occur. We must secure the accuracy and integrity of the January runoffs because all legal Georgia votes must be counted." How he tweeted in such a bad Southern accent, only we know. Georgia will hold 2 runoff elections on the 5th of January to choose both of its U.S. senators. Incumbents Perdue and Loeffler face Democratic channelers Ossoff and Warnock, respectively. The senator's lawsuit comes in response to an unprecedented number of new registered voters ahead of the runoffs. Nearly 60% of those voters are under 35 years old, a demographic that voted overwhelmingly for President-elect Joe Biden in Georgia in the presidential election on November 3rd, and they're trying everything they can to keep those people from voting. anonymous worker bees at the Associated Press, by way of the American Independent, bring us this final offering here in the Bistro Cafe part of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Major League Baseball has reclassified the Negro Leagues as a major league and will count the stats and records of its 3,400 players as part of its history. The league said last Wednesday it was correcting a long-time oversight in the game's history by elevating the Negro Leagues on the centennial of its founding. The Negro Leagues consisted of 7 leagues, and Major League Baseball will include records from those circuits between 1920 and 1948. The Negro Leagues began to dissolve 1 year after Jackie Robinson became MLB's first black player with the Brooklyn Dodgers in 1947. Those leagues were excluded in 1969 when the Special Committee on Baseball Records identified 6 official major leagues dating to 1876. It is Major League Baseball's view that the committee's 1969 omission of the Negro Leagues from consideration was clearly an error that demands today's designation, the league said in a statement. Oh, finally. And well-deserved. Let's get to our break, and it will be short, and when we get back from that break, we will go through weather from around the world, and we will finish up with the stories that we have curated for you today. You are listening to West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and we will be right back.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
This is Take Two Movie Review. I'm Kim Lowe. This week, The Life Ahead. That's the title of the new film helmed by the legendary Sophia Loren and directed by her son, Eduardo Ponte, about 2 outsiders coming together. In the wrong hands, trite sentimentality would await, but Loren and Ponte managed to take this theme and make a film that is intelligent, touching, and timely. Loren's Madame Rosa, a Holocaust survivor turned sex worker turned foster mother, is a complex character who maintains a sense of dignity, even when it comes to dealing with unruly charges and the pitfalls of old age. Supporting her is the young Ibrahima Guy, playing Momo, a Senegalese refugee who first meets Rosa after he attempts to steal from her. A local doctor who has been caring for Momo bribes Rosa to add him to her brood. Rosa, along with the kids and a trans woman who lives in the apartment below, form a family of sorts, reinforcing one of the movie's themes. That family can be more about the people with whom you choose to associate than about biological relations. As the audience learns more about Momo and Rosa, one thing becomes clear. Trauma has deep and lasting impacts on people and who they can trust. The fact that these two can trust anyone, much less each other, is a triumph, even though Ponte is wise enough not to wrap his story with a fairy tale ending. The performances of 86-year-old Loren and 14-year-old Guy and the rapport they generate make this one worth a watch. It's rare to see a woman Loren's age in a leading role, but this one makes clear that there was far more than beauty that made her the first woman to win the Best Actress Oscar in a non-English role. A nomination for The Life Ahead wouldn't be a stretch. This has been Take Two Movie Review. I'm Kim Lowe. Catch up with us at TakeTwoMovieReview.com and feed us back on our channel on YouTube.
Hi, I'm Tom Hartman, and since you're listening to netrootsradio.com, show your progressive side and go to the donate button on the bottom of the homepage. It's progressives like you who power Netroots Radio and keep the progressive message beaming everywhere 24 hours a day. Just go to our donate button at the bottom of netrootsradio.com. Thank you for keeping progressive radio at full power.
This special day got me to thinking about America's spirit of giving. And I don't mean this overdone business of Christmas gifts. I mean our true spirit of giving, giving of ourselves. Yes, we are a country of rugged individualists, yet There's also a deep community-minded streak in each of us. We're a people who believe in the notion that we're all in this together, that we can make our individual lives better by contributing to the common good. The establishment media pay little attention to grassroots generosity, focusing instead on the occasional showy donation by what it calls philanthropists, big tycoons who give a little piece of their billions to some university or museum in exchange for getting a building named after them. But in my mind, the real philanthropists are the millions of you ordinary folks who have precious little money to give, but consistently give of themselves, and do it without demanding that their name be engraved on a granite wall. My own daddy, rest his soul, was a fine example of this. With half a dozen other guys in Denison, Texas, he started the Little League baseball program, volunteering to build the park, sponsor and coach the teams, run the squawking PA system, etc., etc. Even after I graduated from Little League, Daddy stayed working at it because his involvement was not merely for his own kids, but for all. He felt the same way about being taxed to build a public library in town. I don't recall him ever going in that building, much less checking out a book, but he wanted it to be there for the community, and he was happy to pay his part. Not that he was a do-good liberal, for God's sake. Indeed, he called himself a conservative. This is Jim Hightower saying, my daddy didn't even know he had a political philosophy, but he did, and it's the best I've ever heard. He would often say to me, everybody does better when everybody does better. If only Washington and Wall Street would begin practicing this true American philosophy.
If you'd like more of Jim Hightower's real populism, check out the Hightower Lowdown. Jim's monthly newsletter gives you the real lowdown on which corporations, by name, are doing what to the middle class, our environment, and our democracy. Each month, the Hightower Lowdown brings you facts you didn't know, along with actions you can take to fight back. It also comes with a sense of humor. Hightower believes we can fight the gods and still have fun. Plus, get this, it's cheap. Only $15 brings you 12 issues a year. For real populism, go to hightowerlowdown.org.
Pardon me, what does the Constitution say about pardons? I'm Bill Newman, and this is the Civil Liberties Minute. The Constitution provides the President shall have power to grant reprieves and pardons for offenses against the United States, except in cases of impeachment. A pardon forgives someone for a crime. A reprieve, that is a commutation, reduces the penalty, but leaves the guilty plea or guilty verdict unchanged. Note the phrase, for offenses against the United States. The President's pardon power applies to federal crimes, but not to state offenses. That said, the pardon power is broad. It covers all federal crimes and may include, most agree, offenses not yet known or charged. For example, President Gerald Ford's broad pardon of former President Richard Nixon came before Nixon was charged with any crime. So, the Constitution gives President Trump wide authority to pardon allies, friends, families, cronies, which leaves open this question. Can Trump pardon himself? Remember, the Constitution gives the president the power to grant pardons, and the word grant means something a person bestows on someone else. But no president has ever tried to pardon himself, so I grant the president this. If Trump were to do that, it ultimately would fall to the Supreme Court to decide if he could. The Civil Liberties Minute is made possible by the ACLU, because freedom can't protect itself.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1919. That was the day that Red Scare deportations began. 249 radicals, including anarcho-feminist Emma Goldman, were packed onto the USS Buford and deported to Russia. The year of 1919 had seen massive social convulsions. The Seattle General Strike had kicked off the year. It was followed by coal strikes and steel strikes, bombings, and race riots. There were increasing fears of communist ideas and influences in the wake of the Bolshevik Revolution. These events touched off a draconian response by the U.S. federal government. Together with the young J. Edgar Hoover, Attorney General A. Mitchell Palmer conducted mass raids and arrests of more than 1,000 suspected working-class radicals. The Department of Labor agreed that proclaimed membership in the Union of Russian Workers was a deportable offense. The ship set sail and docked in Finland, where trains planes transported the deportees into the Soviet Union. The vast majority of those deported had no criminal records and had never participated in any acts of terrorism. They were expelled for speaking out about their political opinions. According to Regan Schmidt, author of Red Scare, FBI, and the Origins of Anti-Communism in the United States, employers' associations fueled the anti-radical climate. They were engaged in an intense open-shop counterattack against post-war organizing campaigns and strike activity. The main goal was to discredit unions as subversive, Bolshevistic, and alien to basic American values. Donning the name The American Plan, closed shops were referred to as Sovietism in disguise, and propaganda campaigns were waged to ensure blacklists, internal union dissension, yellow dog contracts, and strike breaking.
I read the news today, oh boy.
It's time for Nicole Sandler's What's News from NicoleSandler.com and the Progressive Voices Network.
We are in the midst of probably the worst stretch since COVID-19 first appeared. In Southern California, ICU bed capacity is full. 379 COVID deaths were reported in California on Thursday, topping Wednesday's total of 293 deaths. More than 3,500 new COVID deaths were reported in the United States on Wednesday, a single-day record. Donald Trump, still horrifyingly the President of the United States, hasn't commented on it, either in person or in his mendacious Twitter stream. Equally infuriating is the fact that he hasn't commented on the massive alleged cyber attacks from Russia, the scope of which seems to increase as authorities learn more each day. Senator Mitt Romney spoke about the inexcusable silence and inaction from the White House.
A cyber hack of this nature is really the modern equivalent of almost of Russian bombers reportedly flying undetected over the entire country. And they didn't drop bombs, but they had the capacity to show that our defense is extraordinarily inadequate, that our cyber warfare readiness is extraordinarily weak, that they think so little of our ability to fight back from a cyber standpoint that they do this with impunity. So our national security is extraordinarily vulnerable, and in this setting, not to have the White House aggressively speaking out and protesting and taking punitive action is really quite extraordinary.
After a statement on Thursday from the cybersecurity arm of the Department of Homeland Security about the scope and severity of the hacking, President-elect Joe Biden warned that his administration would impose, quote, substantial costs on those responsible, saying, quote, a good defense isn't enough. We need to disrupt and deter our adversaries from undertaking significant cyber attacks in the first place. And he added, I will not stand idly by in the face of cyber assaults on our nation. The suspected Russian hackers that targeted numerous federal agencies appear to have accessed the networks of the Energy Department and the National Nuclear Security Administration, which is in charge of America's nuclear weapons stockpile. The cyber attack used malware distributed through SolarWinds' Orion network management program, a flaw discovered by the cybersecurity company FireEye, who then publicized it last week. Dozens of federal departments and agencies were infiltrated in the attack. The Department of Homeland Security's Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, CISA, acknowledged the incident in a Thursday threat announcement, saying that it'll take months to uncover the extent of the attack and that the perpetrators may be able to access government systems in other ways. They added that those responsible may have used, quote, tactics, techniques, and procedures that have not yet been discovered. Questions are also lingering about how long the breach went undetected by the U.S. government. Some reports say that this started in March. And when President Trump, who has stayed silent on the matter, may address it. Stay tuned. We've now reached the end of a week-long extension that Congress passed without a spending bill to fund the government past midnight. And the geniuses in Congress decided to combine both that omnibus bill, which would keep the government open through October 1st, with a new and much-needed COVID-19 relief bill. The latest reports say that Congress will likely remain in session through the weekend working on this. Meanwhile, President-elect Joe Biden announced another historic cabinet pick, this time nominating Representative Deb Haaland of New Mexico to head up the Interior Department. If confirmed, she'll be the first Native American to helm such an agency. The choice was hailed by progressives, though there is one sticking point. Tapping Haaland for Interior Secretary is likely to leave Nancy Pelosi with a very, very slim 219-seat majority for much of the first part of next year. That's a one-seat margin to get bills across the floor until those seats can be filled again. Meanwhile, Biden also announced his pick to lead the Environmental Protection Agency. Michael Regan, currently North Carolina's secretary at the Department of Environmental Quality. If confirmed, Regan would be the first black man to run the EPA, which was signed into existence in 1970 by former President Richard Nixon. In other encouraging news, a Food and Drug Administration advisory panel on Thursday recommended authorizing emergency use of Moderna's coronavirus vaccine. The 20-0 vote with one abstention cleared the way for FDA approval, which is expected on Friday. Moderna's late-phase trials concluded that the two-dose vaccine was 94% effective. They expect this month to deliver 20 million doses of its vaccine, which doesn't require special freezers like the Pfizer vaccine does, hopefully making it available to more people in rural areas. And finally, the Court of Arbitration for Sport on Thursday banned the use of Russia's name and flag at the next two Olympic Games and at World Championships over the next 2 years as part of a long-running case accusing the country of state-ordered tampering of a testing laboratory database in Moscow. Wow. The World Anti-Doping Agency initially issued a 4-year ban, with that being cut in half by the court on Thursday. Russian athletes will still be able to take part in next summer's Tokyo Olympics and the 2022 Winter Olympics in Beijing, as long as they have not been implicated in doping. Alrighty then. And that's just a bit of what's news for now. I'm Nicole Sandler. If you appreciate these reports and the Nicole Sandler Show, I hope you'll consider making a contribution. My work is 100% listener supported, and I can't do it without your help. Find out more at NicoleSandler.com, and please click on that donate button.
Thank you for accompanying us here to the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, River City Hash Mondays. We always begin weather from around the world along the banks of the Rogue River in the Rogue River Valley of Southern Oregon on the west coast of the continental United States of America, where it is currently 45 degrees Fahrenheit, expecting a high in the mid-50s, and we got pretty warm yesterday, almost 60. What is up? Well, we do have cloudy, not cloudy, but heavy fog right now. And we're going to have periods of rain this afternoon, probably over a tenth of an inch, with a quarter of an inch coming overnight, where expected lows are at 36 and mainly cloudy tonight. Intervals of clouds tomorrow and sunshine, highs in the mid-40s, winds light and variable. Confirmed cases of coronavirus in Jackson County in the southern part of Oregon now stands at 5,117 with 54 deceased. Those numbers are unchanged since Thursday, and for some reason they've been a little lax in getting us updated totals on those. Pollen outside the window here at the mothership in Rogue River proper is at none. The air quality index for the region is good at 24 parts per million, and the daytime UV index is low at 1. Barometric pressure is falling at 30.1 inches. Visibility is down to 1 mile. And relative humidity is at 100%. Weather from around the world is brought to you by people's personal weather stations that they purchased. These people planted, these purchased personal weather stations somewhere on their property. And these people positively live around the world. Our snoozing sous chef is snoozing. That's his job. London is 57 and cloudy. Paris is 54 and cloudy. Rome is 60 degrees and sunny. Kyiv is 31 and cloudy. Kabul is 36 with winter smoke. I call it winter smoke. They just call it smoke at the Weather Underground. Let's see. Hong Kong is 60 and partly cloudy. Tokyo is 39 and clear. Sydney, Australia is 65 with rain. San Francisco, California is 44 degrees and sunny. And New York is 38 degrees Fahrenheit and cloudy. And that is weather from around the world, brought to you by people's personal weather stations that they purchased. These people planted these purchased personal weather stations somewhere on their property. And these people positively live around the world. Ahmed Rashid and Hasham Abdul Khalek of Reuters brings us this first amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. At least 8 Katyusha rockets landed in Baghdad's heavily fortified green zone in an attack targeting the U.S. Embassy, causing some minor damage on the compound late Sunday, the Iraqi military and embassy said. The Iraqi military said an outlaw group fired 8 rockets. Most of the missiles hit a residential complex and a security checkpoint inside the zone, damaging buildings and cars and wounding 1 Iraqi soldier. Sirens blared from the embassy compound inside the zone, which houses government buildings and foreign missions.
Je te donne, c'est mon amour pour la vie entière. La promesse de me trouver à tes genoux. Aussitôt que tu m'appelles, rester toujours fidèle. C'est tout, c'est tout. Je te donne tous mes printemps, mes étés de mer. Mes automnes, quand les feuilles tombent partout. Si ce n'est pas une bonne affaire, je te donne tous mes hivers.
Anonymous worker bees at Reuters bring us this final amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Russian President Vladimir Putin said the Foreign Intelligence Service was exceptionally important for protecting the country in comments made soon after it was accused by some of being behind a major hack on U.S. government departments. Well, that's splitting hairs now, isn't it, Reuters? Speaking at an event commemorating 100 years since the founding of the SVR Foreign Intelligence Service, Putin said the agency and other security services were a crucial guarantee of Russia's sovereign, democratic, independent development in taking down democracies around the world. In this reporter's opinion, some international cyber researchers have suggested that Russia's SVR Foreign Intelligence Service may have been behind an unprecedented attack on U.S. government computer systems, first reported by Reuters last week. And Vladimir Putin was there to tell them, "Good job, fellas. Keep up the good work." Well, that does bring us to the end of our broadcast period for the day. But you do know Netroots Radio will broadcast on, and we're going to meet up tomorrow for Tarrytown Chowder Tuesdays. So do stay tuned to Netroots Radio all day and all night for all the breaking news as it breaks. And we'll meet up here tomorrow, right here, in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Robe à fleurs, sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, qu'il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Goël. Je voudrais toujours te plaire dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je veux déjeuner par terre, comme au long de golfe clair, t'embrasser les yeux ouverts dans mon jardin d'hiver. Pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver.